Welcome to The Price is Nice. Today we're going to look at these two properties. They're both fixer-uppers and decide which of the two is a better proposition as a home that needs a little bit of love to get it absolutely perfect. This is a property in southeast London, in Lewisham. Quirky facades. Looks like it might be end of terrace. There's a lot going on here. Am I going to see a cauldron in the living room or something? Weird and wonderful, but 3-bedroom, semi-detached. Off-street parking plus a garage. Well, if you've got a garage, you don't need off-street parking, but it does give rise to a garage conversion. Let's check that out. It's always worth a look to have a check on the EPC rating. This is at E, which isn't fantastic. Is it velour? Is it velvet? I tell you what, it's not to my taste. Bones of the building look quite good though. Just looking at the original layout. Okay, so there's a little bit of an attempt there at the garden. Suspended ceiling. Right, okay, so this really needs a good strip out, and I'm not just talking about the furniture and the carpet and the finishings. There's a lot of architectural endeavours going on here, which not to scare anyone, but I would think for a property like this, looking at the sort of materials that have been used, and I don't believe they contain asbestos, but they might have been done at the time when asbestos was laden in a lot of construction materials. That's not just insulation, it was used in a lot of pipe work, it was used in a lot of duct work. It might be that everything's absolutely fine. I'm just looking at some of the architectural endeavours and some of the fixings that have been seemingly done over the years, and it just reminds me of other properties where I've seen that sort of thing done previously. So might just be my paranoia, although I've been doing this for quite a long time and I've seen the signs of a property that all of a sudden turns out to have harmful chemicals somewhere used within it. Looking at the outside rendering, this really needs a spruce up, and I'm seeing a lot of discoloration on the main house. That tells me that the envelope is not breathable at this point. If you think about how much moisture we expel per day simply by being humans, couple that along with a lot of moisture is not captured by your kitchen and your bathroom extractors when you turn them on, and the fact that pets, plants, a lot of other things that live within your property and are done within your property produce airborne moisture, and that starts to paint a picture as to how important it is that moisture can move through your property, either through a ventilation system, which is more of a modern way of doing it, or through the breathability of the actual fabric of the building. Bricks appear solid, but bricks, especially London stock bricks, are actually quite porous. Here we're starting to see patches of darker areas around the corners and around the junctions, which are usually the telltale signs of this sort of issue. So yeah, a couple of red flags there that I'm sort of seeing. I'm also looking at this fascia board on the roof. Looks to have been rotted quite a bit. It would be good to go up and see that attic and see the roof and see what sort of state it's in. I'm coupling these things that I'm seeing right now with the EPC grade, which we saw previously was quite low, and it's starting to paint a picture of a house that doesn't just need a development in the sense of extending it, adding space to it, adding volume to it, but I think it needs some tender love and care with respect to how it performs as a machine for the people who enjoy it. But let's have a look at what we could do. What's great about this property, I suppose, if we look at the floor plan. It's a good shape, actually. So you've got this nice infill area here behind the garage, where you could potentially extend into, and you could form a side extension. I think with the garden being so tight on the back, I don't think you could extend the property further. Most borough authorities like to see family homes to have their own green space. They have dedicated gardens. There is a garage there. You can convert a garage very efficiently and very cost effectively into a habitable place. Usually it's a case of swapping out the garage doors for a nice window on the front, and then you're basically using that existing superstructure, re-insulating it to turn it into a nice bedroom space, or commonly home offices. Could also become a home pub though, or a kebab shop. Do you know we had a guy came in, he had an outbuilding done, turned it into a kebab shop. Now on the first floor, I'm seeing 3 bedrooms. I'm not seeing a family bathroom up there, which is a bit of a red flag for me, particularly because of the size of the bedrooms. It doesn't look like an ensuite is going to be the most feasible up there. And I'm looking at the bedroom at the rear portion of the property. Yeah, I believe it's this space here with the pink fluffy carpet and the interesting clip art wallpaper. That's very like Microsoft PowerPoint 97, isn't it? Yeah, let's just tile that. Bosh. I'm expecting to see that little paper clip somewhere on here saying, it looks like you're slagging off a property. Do you need assistance? No, I'm very good at it, mate. On the ground floor as well, actually, you've got, 3 reception rooms and then 1 kitchen. I think what you need is probably 1 larger kitchen and then 2 reception rooms. 1 reception room at the front where you use on special occasions, perhaps when the family come over and you just want to put granddad somewhere so that he can fall asleep after Christmas dinner. So I think this one needs a lot of TLC to get it to a state by where it's livable. So for that, I would say I'm going to subtract 15 points for that. I also think it needs a really good clean out of the finishes and furnishings in there, and a lot of work to the internal floor plan to get it livable. So again, I'm actually going to take off another 10 points for that. I can't really make comment on the loft space until we get up there. So again, I'm going to take that down by another, I would say another 10 points. But I think there's a lot of positives to this property, particularly with it being an end of terrace and having this garage structure that even if you don't keep it, is still a good weapon to have in terms of justifying doing the side extension. So for that, I'm definitely going to add another 10 points. One thing I would say about extending into the side here, and it depends upon the axis of the property with respect to the sun. It looks like the back of the property, I believe, will be facing the west, which means it might be in its shadow for a lot of the day. But I would think with that side extension, because you've got a little bit of a tunneling effect, don't completely cover it with an extension. You probably won't get permission for that anyway. I would add in a light well. A light well is simply where you extend a bit to the side, but you form a courtyard, if you will, where you can put glazing on these elements. And as the name would suggest, you pool light from above and you deliver it into the spaces deep within the floor plan that don't often receive it. Architecturally as a feature as well, courtyards are drastically underrated in my opinion. You don't see them as often in this country because we have a summer that lasts around about 6 minutes. On the first floor, again, I would subtract points for there not being a family bathroom, but I think therefore it means that you could probably look at doing a new loft extension there and getting in the new loft stair there. Obviously go to your architect for that, but given that a lot's going to change on this first floor plan anyway, to try and get a family bathroom in there, that also gives rise to the fact that the disruption caused by putting a loft on there probably isn't going to be that bad therefore, because you're already tinkering with this level anyway. I think if you can get a hip to gable loft conversion on this property, it would add serious value. So I would probably add another 15 points on there. I would probably say I'm going to add a further 10 points on for the fact that the property is of a fantastic size and does have a provision of a garden. So this is St John's Avenue, Northwest London, NW10. Okay, it's a Victorian house. We deal with, probably that's the most common house type that we deal with. Yep, the estate agents had a bit of a flight of fancy there on the description of the works, but fair play to them. They are selling it and they're selling it hard. Right, let's have a little look at the space. So we've got a shot of the back garden. Needs a little bit of love, but it's nice and long, which would suggest that you can extend up to 3 meters normally. You could even go as far as 6 meters under a prior approval application, but that requires a little bit more consent and input from your neighbors. Certainly there looks to be capacity there to push the property out to the rear, and it really should do so because I'm looking at a very old style lean-to. I'm looking at portions of damp, primarily from the usage here. This space doesn't know if it's a utilities room or a conservatory or a sink. One thing that is true about this space is that it's probably got to go if you're going to convert it into habitable space that is usable. 10 points off for that dodgy conservatory. Let's have a look at the floor plans. So this is a very typical Victorian layout. You've got the main house, which is where we've got the receptions and bedrooms on the ground floor, and then the 2 bedrooms above. Towards the rear, you have the outrigger. The great thing with having an outrigger, not only have the possibility of doing a rear extension on the rear elevation of this property, but you can do what's called a wraparound. Now this is where you'll extend out the back of the property, and you'll extend in that small strip of land that we see here next to the kitchen and dining room on the ground floor. You can see there that that shower room slash utility slash conservatory, sunroom, whatever it is, if that were to be demolished, then you could use that existing rear wall where the kitchen is to actually form your 3 meter projection and then wrap around. It's crying out to be opened up quite a bit. Particularly because it's not got a fantastic access with respect to how daylight gets in, which again, I would say probably take off another 10 to 15 points in terms of red flags there. Just the way that the property is aligned means that it's probably not going to get too much daylight in its key living spaces on the back of the house until later in the day. It'll also be affected by how tall the buildings are around it. If you open up that space, you can add significant value on that property, anywhere up to around 20%. Oh, interesting decorative choice there behind the fireplace. I'm trying not to be really judgmental. Well, it's definitely signs of damp penetration. Now, that could be for a multitude of reasons with a Victorian property. It could be ventilation performance. Finishes used inside of the building are preventing the building from exhausting airborne moisture. Very, very common issue with this sort of property. Now, you can solve these problems, and there's no better time to solve these problems than when you're extending. Another 5 points for that little spot of damp. There might be more things to be discovered in terms of the damping conditions of this property. I think with a little bit more of an analysis on site and perhaps some on-site testing, we'd be able to find out exactly what its condition is. You've got wonderful opportunities to frame that garden, to get a landscape designer on board and do something really beautiful with that unkept jungle that it is out there at the moment. Really adds a lot of perceivable value to a property as well when you've got fantastic landscapes and somewhere to actually frame a view from this wonderful space that you're going to create within the property when you extend. Looking at the first floor plan, I have seen something. It's the standalone WC that's not quite connected to the bathroom, and why on earth did people do it? I'm going to say another 5 off for the separate toilet. Now, I'm only going to take 5 off because that's easily fixable. So basically, you're going to knock through that partition. I think there's probably opportunities to do something a little bit better with that bathroom. Looking at the photos of it, needs a bit of a facelift anyway. Turning that into a nice family bathroom on the first floor would be a great strategy, which leads me into my next point. If you look in the description of the property. Now, this needs to be confirmed on site, ideally, when you do a survey, but it looks like the attic, the loft, can be developed. But one thing for certain that needs to be checked at an early stage is what is the current head height from the ceiling joists currently holding the first floor ceiling to the underside of the ridge of the existing roof. The ridge is the apex, if you will. It's the highest point of the roof. We ideally need to know the underside of these spaces so we can understand how feasibly a loft can be developed there. Now, if you've got anywhere around about 2.3 to 2.4 meters clearance between the tops of the existing ceiling ties to the underside of the ridge, you can usually get a pretty good bedroom in there, and you're probably looking at a final head height of somewhere over 2.1 or 2.15 meters, which is generally the minimum if you want a nice bedroom space that you could call a master bedroom. But during any site visit or property visit with the estate agent to go and have a look at the space, that's something that you can get in there with a laser measure or a tape measure. So we're down at 70 points now that we subtract the red flags. This is in a borough that seems to be quite favourable to a wraparound extension. I think that can add such a significant amount of space that will add that habitable value, but it also gives rise to allowing a lot more daylight in there. So this sort of sorts a lot of the red flags that I've previously flagged about this property. So for that, I'm actually going to give it 20 points, plus 20 points. One thing I haven't actually jumped into is the location. Let's find the nearest pub to the house. Pubs nearby. Chicken shops nearby. Is there a Gale's Bakery nearby? Marks and Spencer's food. You can see I have a range of tastes and a range of classiness levels. Not a ton of pubs, I'll be honest with you. You've got chicken shops galore. Big plus from me, thank you. Yeah, there's lots of different schools around this area. Can I just see if there's a Marks and Spencer's nearby? Not a Marks' nearby. But there is a massive Tesco's. I'm going to give all in all for all of that, I'm going to say about 15 points. Ooh. Bit of a walk to find a pub there. Now, there is a Wetherspoons, but you've got to go over the Ravensbourne River, which is probably fine on the way there, but it might be difficult on the way back, depending on how many shots you've had. You don't want to fall in. Not massively close to pubs, but what about schools? Lots of them. You know what I'm going to look for now, don't you? I'm just checking to see, is there a Marks and Sparks nearby? Boom! One right there. So, looking at our two properties, I think has brilliant potential, but will require a bit of work to say the least. I think you could really turn that into a fantastic family home. I think there's great opportunities within its layout to really make something quite individual of it. But unfortunately, because of the condition it's in, it's going to require a significant amount of upheaval to get it to a really livable standard. I think a score of 160 points is fair. Fantastic potential, good site, very, very good area. That nice big back garden as well. Few issues to overcome, but I scored that one 190 points as a rating. Price was a little bit high, but that's to be expected in the current climate. On that property, my friend, the price is nice.